don't see any bits. There's no bits.
No what?
There's no bits coming in, Lewis.
What's that mean?
Never mind. Why do I even ask?
There's
And
no
we're live.
bits?
We got bits. The bits, like the data bits, Lewis. The bits are the things that the computers need to generate image and sound and all that stuff. The bits, the bytes, the
I mean,
boops.
they're not coming
the
in.
bleeps. They are now. Now we got the bits. Look at that complexion. Look at that golden complexion. You know what? I hope that the iPhone 14 is the same color as Leander's face is right now. It's like that beautiful bronze, beautiful creamy bronze. Look at that HDR.
Look at that golden
bronze.
California suntan. All you need is some long golden locks. You'll be just like the classic California dude from the 70s.
Yeah, You definitely need to get those.
Jeff,
installed.
what's his face from Ridgemont High?
Spicoli, yeah. It sounds like that's what you
Spicoli,
saw happening on the street yesterday, right?
Hmm?
So it sounds like what you saw happening on the street yesterday. Full Spicoli.
Yeah, right. That's right. Oh, with this van, yeah. Oh, I forgot that. Yeah.
All right, I'm sending out the tweet, Lewis. Hey, LK, you gotta in 1 second. You gotta do a hold on. Let me send this tweet out. I can't think and do this at the same time. You gotta do a center stage demo for us because I don't think that people have seen the way that it works outside of the Apple commercial unless they've used it themselves. So LK is broadcasting from the Mac Studio with Studio Display, and he got up just a moment ago and started walking around, and I was like, dude, that's actually pretty cool. Like the center stage feature, it totally followed him all around the office. So Leander, take your headphones off.
Do it now?
Just do it now real fast. Or do you want to wait and do it for the show?
Well, I was going to say, when we're doing the show.
All right. We're going to do that. We're going to
wasting
do that
it
in the
now?
show then. Okay. We're going to start the show in just a sec. So you can show it to everyone because I was actually kind of impressed with it. And it was pretty cool. Like panned all around. It knew exactly where you were. It was like looking for when you left the frame. It was looking for you. All right. Shout out to Jay Cruz, has a very chipper. Hey, y'all. We must have some lag in the chat because the concurrent viewers is just skyrocketing as it always does. But we're not getting any. We're not getting. Oh, there it goes. Now I just kicked in. Shout out to Dan Dewitt. Hey, it's LK. Oh, hey, Arifon and Lewis. I hate that guy. Mario A, glad to see Leon Dita is back. Oh yeah, he was wearing his lederhosen in the last 2 weeks and was participating in some activities that we can't talk about here, but he's back now. And we got a lot to talk about here this week. Of course, you all know that we got Wwdc upcoming, and it's going to be the last transition to, or I guess the last hurrah. The transition to Apple Silicon will be complete after WWDC, and we're only missing one computer, and we've got some stuff to talk about for the Mac Pro. So let's go ahead and queue up Mrs. You know who. Oh, Mrs. D. Look at that dark bronze Fabio. Yeah, he's looking pretty good, isn't he? Oh, I'd like to get my hands on his six-pack. Oh, jeez. Oh, you might have to find it. I mean, it's buried in there, but it's probably in there somewhere. All right, guys, let's get this show going. Mrs. D, if you're ready, I will get the music queued up here, and we'll get the show started. In 3, 2, 1. Hello, and welcome to CultCast, the best 30+ minute Apple conversation you're gonna hear all week long. I'm your host, Arifon Elijah. Joining me today, Emergency Services recently received a call that his house was on fire. When they entered the home, though the house was filled with smoke, they didn't actually find any fire, but they did find him asleep on the floor, surrounded by various UK snack food wrappers. He's the founder of CultCast. Later, Katie's here.
Oh my God, did you see me?
Also with us, people say he's the toughest editor in tech, but he's been softening up these last few years. He hasn't sprayed any writers with a hose in ages. He hasn't plunged his thumbs in anyone's eye sockets since those California state charges were filed in 2017. We can't talk about that. That's still under litigation. He's the managing editor of CultMac. Lewis Wallace is here.
Hey, yo. Start sweating. It's hot here. It's hot here in San Francisco today.
Oh, really? Is it?
Yeah.
Balmy 61, 62?
75.
You're kidding me.
It's gorgeous. It's a great day to stand inside a dark room and talk about Apple stuff.
Is that why LK is looking so bronze right now? Were you out in the sun getting a suntan? He's looking about 2 shades darker than he normally is.
He looks like he might have been getting away from the computer a little bit.
Really? Do I look? My wife said I look pasty.
Yeah.
That must be this part here, you know.
Oh,
Oh.
I got bike tan.
let's be careful with that there.
I feel like I should be wearing one of those welder's shields when you show your upper sleeve section. My retinas are hurting. Well, I was thinking it was probably that studio display camera action you got going there. I mean, just when you joined, I was like, something definitely looks different. And then you said you're broadcasting from the studio display, which is good. You actually got yours set up, because I was telling Leander Lewis, like, mine are my studio display and my Mac Studio are literally sitting back there, and I've had them for like a week.
That
and
box hasn't moved.
I know. I have not had a chance to actually set it up yet. Not only that, but I have no place to put it. I was like, where am I going to put this thing? I don't know where. So
I see a table right there.
Well, I know that's what I was thinking too, but it's like literally in the middle of my room. I'm like, am I going to put a freaking Mac Studio in the middle of my room? That's my review table, which doesn't get a lot of use these days. So I probably should just put it right there. But so yeah, LK looking nice and creamy. Look at that beautiful complexion. And I was thinking that we could just do a quick center stage demo here.
Yeah,
later,
it's quite.
because yeah, look at that. Because it has center stage, obviously, and he was walking around earlier, and I was like, dude, that's actually pretty cool.
I thought it was working sort of a bit more aggressively before, wasn't it? A bit quicker.
Well, if you take your headphones off and just like go walk around the back of the office, it will follow. Look at that. So look at that. It looks like it's crazy. And then it will. Yep. He's a creep. Look at that. Look at that creeping in the corner over there. That's usually what the people inside their house see when they look out their window after they got out of the shower, and that's what they see.
I think it looks like Ed 209 from RoboCop. You have 10 seconds to comply.
Is that what it looked like?
Yeah, it's following you around.
I thought it was quicker though. Wasn't it quicker before? It doesn't seem to be quick enough, but
I feel like it works a lot better when you stand up.
You're not moving fast enough.
Yeah. But anyway, it's pretty handy, man. Like, it actually followed you around the room, and I was saying, like, this is gonna ruin a lot of journalist careers when they're trying to pull a Jeffrey Toobin and they don't realize that they've got center stage turned on. So,
you had to bring that up.
So watch out. Well, the reason I brought it up is because Lander's like, hold on a tick, and he's like, I gotta get something. And he comes back with a giant bottle of lotion. I'm like, yeah, it's right there.
Oh my God!
I was like, what do you need that? Are your
hands
so chapped?
My hands, yeah.
Are your hands so chapped that you have to put lotion on right this moment?
Yeah, they're actually bleeding. They're so dry.
I find that to be really odd. So anyway, there's your center stage demo, at least if you got to watch it. If you're listening and you're like, yeah, that was lame, just go to watch.thecultcast.com and you can see all the episodes that we've done are all archived there, so you can just go check it out. And it's pretty cool, man. I've only ever seen that happen on the Apple commercials. I haven't spoken with anyone that actually has used center stage. That's the first live demo that I've ever seen, and the first one that I've seen outside of like Apple demoing it on stage. But okay, that was definitely exciting. Good way to kick off the show. Let's before we dive in to all of our WWDC predictions and hardware expectations, and there is some stuff to talk about. Let's talk about Jamf there, Lewis. You want to talk about Jamf?
Jamf, yeah. So Jamf has a new program called Jamf Fundamentals, and it pairs market-leading, powerful mobile device management technology with new capabilities for protecting, connecting, and empowering small to mid-sized businesses. As anybody that's got Apple gear, right? Helps manage the entire Apple ecosystem. Best part is no IT experience is required. That's got to be a hallelujah if you're like sitting there looking at all the employees, you got to manage their stuff, right? Okay, definitely. Great. I don't have to have a degree in computer science, and I don't have to hire somebody with a degree in computer science. Anyway, the Jamf Fundamentals plan helps businesses solve device management pain points with regard to, software and device deployment, user access and security. This new version, Jamf Fundamentals, aimed strictly at small to mid-sized businesses, brings, quote, new capabilities for protecting, connecting, and empowering an organization's end users through malware prevention, password sync, self-service functionality for Mac, and the ability to deploy any iPad and iPhone app, custom profiles, and macOS packages, all designed for simplicity so no additional training is required. Sounds great, doesn't it?
Yeah, definitely. We need that. I mean, no IT experience required. That's right up my alley.
Yeah, it's my favorite.
Yeah, I set it up on my mom's iPad, as many of you know, and you definitely don't need to be a technical person to manage devices with Jamf. They make it so easy. You really wouldn't even need to have a ton of experience managing devices to actually utilize it, because it's just written in plain English. You know, like it just everything that you can do is all laid out in a smart way, and the features are presented in a way that I think even regular people can understand. Like, you don't need to actually be like some techie guy to be able to control devices.
Yeah, I mean, all that stuff can take a lot of time. You know, I mean, even just updating my iPhone and my Mac and my Apple Watches it actually takes time. It's kind of shocking. You know, you just imagine multiplying that by like 10 employees or 50 employees. Ugh, what a nightmare.
Or 3 relatives.
Kidding all the
yeah, right, exactly. One granny, one mom, and some kids. Yeah.
Oh, jeez. Anyway, so it's out right now. Jamf Fundamentals, I think this came out late last month. Go to jamf.com/beyond. That's JAMF.com/beyond. And CultCast fans can manage 3 devices for free. Go there, sign up, check it out, see if it's right for you.
You get 3 free forever. So if you want to check it out, just go and sign up some of your devices, and it's really easy to get set up. And you could be managing your mom's iPad, your kids' iPads remotely, or whatever.
Your boss's iPad.
Your boss's iPad without them knowing it, you know, so you can steal the company data.
Deploying the anti-blink filter.
Do they have one of those? I think we need to get that deployed on Leander's Mac Studio ASAP. Although with the amount of blink removal it would have to do, the CPU would be screaming hot, and he would probably have the bandwidth. Yeah,
they just put like some Homer Simpson eyes in his sockets.
That's what we should get him. We should get him some of those sunglasses that just have like the eyeballs open, you know. Then he just falls asleep. All right, jamf.com/beyond. Let's get into it. Let's talk about WWDC. LK, I'm sending this over to you. This is very exciting. Let's talk about the event, and we can talk about hardware as well.
Yeah, so earlier this week, Apple announced that WWDC is coming back on June 6th, and it's online only again for the 3rd year in a row. But there's a twist. So the 2022, my goodness me, I can't do it. I can't say that word. The 2022 iteration of Apple's annual Worldwide Developers Conference will start on June 6th. Apple promised you that the event will showcase the latest innovations. Here's a big surprise: in iOS, iPadOS, macOS, watchOS, and tvOS. Who would have predicted that? So anyway, this is code for unveiling the next major upgrades to these operating systems. So it's going to be pretty exciting. Yeah, I'm looking forward to iOS 16. So it's going to be online only for most people, but fortunately, a few developers and students will be able to watch the keynote from Apple Park. So typically, thousands of developers flock to the San Francisco Bay Area for a rare chance to learn from Apple staffers in person. However, due to the COVID-19 pandemic, the last 2 developers conferences took place online only. This changes in 2022, sort of. Apple's going to host a special day for developers and students at Apple Park to watch the WWDC 2022 keynote and the State of the Union presentations.
This kind of goes back to what you're saying, Lewis. Like it's like we're going to be watching a pre-recorded video. It's not even going to be live at all. And that kind of takes some of the, well, it definitely takes the energy out of it to me. It's like, oh, we're all going to sit there and watch this thing together.
I don't want to say
cool,
that,
but yeah,
I don't want to say that Tim Cook, quoted my amazing opinion piece. But yeah, I mean, I that's exactly what I thought. I was like, I almost tweeted like a haha.
You mean like Nelson? You mean like Nelson from?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, I think it's awesome to do. I hope that they flash audience reaction.
Yeah.
I mean, I hope that they're visible there. But I don't know. I mean, they are going to be watching a movie. I mean, watching people watch a movie is maybe not so awesome. I don't know. It's hard to tell.
Watching people watch a movie. Yeah, that's exactly what's going to be happening here. I hope they bring it back live next year. I thought they would have it live this year because the COVID stuff seems to be really fizzling out, and most people are vaccinated these days. It seems like it. At least for now. It seems like you would be safe to do it at this time of year. Like if it were going to be in November, you probably wouldn't be as safe. But like this time of year, with, the COVID numbers that we have and everyone spending most of their time outdoors, it just seems like it would be fine to do it indoors. But whatever, they want to be cautious. Okay.
Well,
Starting to rise again, though. That's the problem.
Can they set up a bunch of lawn chairs, in the middle of the Apple HQ and, the rainbow stages and do it there?
Did you see Google did that? Did you see that?
They did it outdoors?
They had an outdoor one and it looked really weird because everybody's like on their little, it looked like everybody was playing Twister, or everybody was on a Twister, whatever that is, mat, right? Like you've got your little thing, you're 6 feet from somebody else, you're outside. I don't know. I don't know that was better. It was kind of weird.
Well, someone pointed out on Twitter that the money you save from flying to San Francisco and booking a hotel for a week, you could buy yourself a brand new Mac Studio and a studio display. So look on the bright side.
That's hilarious. Well, and I mean, a lot of people liked the way it happened last year, right? I mean, now instead of just a certain number of people getting to it, everybody gets kind of the same experience, right? So I mean,
people were complaining about the lottery system before, weren't they? It was they couldn't get in year after year. People because there were so many limited spots, and of course for the people who did get in, it is totally valuable to be able to meet people in person and network and meet Apple employees. It's the networking, I think, and seeing friends year after year that people really like. And the same thing was true for Macworld. I mean, that was the best thing, seeing people you hadn't seen all year. That you see every year, these fellow, Mac fans and for me, journalists and stuff like that. But, you can't recreate that. So, as usual, you can be sitting at home watching a Zoom presentation for the third year in a row. But I quite liked. I don't hate the online presentations that they do. The canned ones, the pre-recorded ones. But I think you're right. It doesn't have the live stage feel thing has it gives it more energy. I think.
Totally different energy than. I don't mind watching it. I don't mind watching a pre-recorded event either, but I would like to see them go back to the live thing because that just had so much more of a community feel to it because we're all watching it live and there's reactions live as things are happening. There's reactions to product announcements, and I thought that was pretty cool. So I'd love to see them go back to that. Let's talk about product expectations here because I think that's something that people are probably interested in. So first of all, freaking great video by Max Tech out this week. I will put a link to it in the show notes if you want to check it out. And they're talking about what to expect at WWDC 2022. And as we all know, this is supposed to be the end of the transition, right? So we are almost certainly going to get a new Mac Pro happening at WWDC, and even Gurman expects that we're going to get it. Now, it probably won't be released at WWDC or maybe even anytime soon after that. Like, it seems like we're going to get, and I think Gurman said this, we'll have the final Mac Pro, the final transition to Apple Silicon in September, but they're almost certainly going to announce it at the keynote events for WWDC. And it seems like we might also be getting a brand new monitor. And if you have just bought the Studio Display, or if you're thinking about buying a Studio Display, you may want to wait and hear this information because this might alter your purchase decision. In fact, I'm having like all sorts of like buyer's remorse. We'll talk about this in a second. I bought the M1 Ultra Mac Studio, and man, that thing is just so confusing because it was so hyped to perform at such a level, and all the benchmarks, all the real world performance indicates that it's just not performing the way we would expect. I know we talked about this in the past, and I thought I would just kind of put a cap on it and give you one more short presentation on really what's going on with the M1 Ultra.
Yeah,
I won't bring it up 10 more times, in the next 10 weeks.
You have my curiosity. So what's the rumor about the new monitor?
Okay, we could start with that. So there are also rumors going around that not only is Apple going to be announcing the Mac Pro, right, with Apple Silicon, but they're also going to be essentially releasing what seems to me to be like a mini Pro XDR display. So if you're wondering why the Studio Display doesn't have mini LED backlights, it doesn't have ProMotion, well, it seems like those features are going to be present in the 27-inch Pro XDR Mini, as I'm calling it. So it's essentially going to be a 27-inch version of the Pro XDR display, which actually makes a lot of sense. So if they price this thing like around $3,000, right, which I'm suspecting it will be like $3,000 or $3,500, it will be 27 inches, which means it will be 5K. It will be Retina. So it doesn't have the resolution of the Pro XDR display, but it will have a lot of the same features. It will just be a smaller form factor. and it will be 5K instead of 6K, and it's supposed to have mini LED, so it's going to have a vastly improved contrast ratio. It'll probably be 1,000,000 to 1 versus what is in the current studio display, which is like 1,000 or 1,600 to 1, because it just has a single LED back panel that doesn't have any variation in brightness. It's just they're all the same brightness, right, all the time. And it's supposed to also have ProMotion, which I don't think that, well, I'm getting ahead of myself here. So we'll see what happens with that. But that is one of the rumors, and I think one of the people who has been talking about this has been Ross Young, who's one of the analysts out there who has a pretty accurate track record, and he's saying that he thinks it will be revealed along with the Mac Pro, the updated Mac Pro. And then the other thing will be the Mac Pro, right? So the Mac Pro, we don't know exactly what's going to happen with it. We know that during the last keynote, when they were releasing the Mac Studio, they said the transition to M1 chips is complete, and there won't be any, or they said that, I should rephrase that there won't be any new M1 chips. So that got people thinking, well, wait a second, like, if there's not going to be any new M1 chips, what the heck is going in the Mac Pro? And it seems like they're actually going to release a chip that's special to the Mac Pro and actually give it a completely new naming scheme. So it will include the M1 Max in probably like a quadruple orientation. So instead of being 2 like there is in the Mac Studio, there will be 4. And they might call it like the X1, right? So it's going to be like the Mac Studio Pro version of the Mac Studio M1 Ultra version. It's going to be 2 of those, and they're going to engineer it so that you can have 4 of those in the same computer, and they're going to give it an entirely new naming convention. So the Mac Studio or the Mac Pro with X1 Ultra or X1 Extreme, some people are calling it, and then you have the new monitor. So everyone will be so excited that they'll, be panicking to open their wallets and give Apple another, $10,000 or $15,000. So if they released a 27-inch XDR display mini, I would truly, I don't want to be vulgar, but I'd be pretty miffed about that. It's like,
well, open up the one you got and check it out first. I mean, it ain't that bad.
So you're using one right now. How do you like it, Leander?
It's lovely. It's beautiful. It's really, really a lovely display. It's super colorful. It's really high resolution. Yeah. I mean, I'm looking at. I got a Samsung one here, which I thought was a pretty nice display. I've got 2 external displays, one either side, and this Samsung display that I thought was pretty good. I don't know what the model number is, and I got a BenQ one on the other side that rotates. The BenQ one is much better than the Samsung one. But in comparison, it's awful junk. I can't even bear to look at it. It's horrible. It burns my eyes. And this display is lovely. And as you saw, the camera, the what's it called? I've already forgotten the name of the
Center
feature.
Stage? Yeah. I always forget the name of that feature too. I have no idea why. I'm totally happy with it. It was pricey. It's not cheap, but this display, I think, is going to be going to last me a long time. It's a really good size. I'm totally happy with it. I'm delighted with it. I'm sure I will be too. I just, like I said before, I'm not going to go into the whole rant again, but I just feel like they could have made it special, and they didn't. They just basically, it's a cash grab. It really is. Like, it's a nice display, but there's nothing special about it aside from the fact that, and this is the thing.
On. It's a 5K display. It's really
right.
nice.
It's 5K.
I'm pissed at my old iMac. I can't use my old iMac as an external display because it's basically the same panel.
Right. Yeah.
And I was like thinking, because they used to have that. What was it called? What was the name of the feature? Target display mode, where you could use an iMac as an external display. And they'd crippled it with this machine and all the ones subsequently after that.
Now that
apparently there's a good reason for that. There's a lot of conspiracy theories. Oh my God, typical Apple, they can't use this. But apparently it doesn't, Thunderbolt cables don't have enough bandwidth to drive it as an external display. So you'd have to actually somehow double up the, someone said there was a technical way to do it. You have to push it through 2 Thunderbolt cables or something like that. Which sounds like a hairy nightmare, but there was a technical reason why they weren't doing it. But that's a disappointment. So I've got a beautiful display right here, my old iMac, which I can't use.
Yeah, so I'm not saying it's a bad display. I mean, I know that I'm gonna like it once I get it unboxed.
Once I open the box,
Once I open it. But it just it just feels like it's
Just
a
chuck
little
it straight in the
it's,
trash. I
it's
mean,
a little too similar to the iMac, and it's so expensive. It just does kind of feel like a cash grab. But and what I really wanted is the thing that we are hearing might show up at WWDC, which is the 27-inch 5K HDR mini LED backlights ProMotion. Like that is what I wanted. That's what I was hoping we were going to get, is a mini Pro XDR display. Instead, what we got was a 5K iMac panel put into its own M1 iMac chassis, and without the computer there. So that's what we got. That's not what I wanted, though.
Basically, it has an iPad in it, doesn't it, that you can't use?
Yeah, that you can't actually use. Yeah, and the A13 I just think is completely superfluous. Like it's the only reason it's there is to enable center stage and 3D audio on older Macs. That seems to be the only reason that it's even there. So it's like, for me, I'm like, okay, well, if you have a newer Mac, you didn't even need the A13 to be in the display, because your Mac could have driven that performance. So anyway, I'm doing the rant I said I wasn't gonna do. So yeah, I'm gonna get it unboxed. And the other thing is, hold on, wait, is there anything else to talk about for WWDC? I think that's it. So we're expecting a Mac Pro, probably with an X1 Extreme.
Well, hold on, it was a lot of rumors about the AR VR headset.
Oh, I don't think that's happening. I'm glad that you brought that up. I don't think that's happening, and here's why. Do you think that Apple would reveal an entirely new paradigm of computer via a virtual event where some students are going to be watching a pre-recorded video? I don't think so.
Students are going to love it. They're going to be clapping, and then like, what?
That'd be the weirdest marketing launch I've ever seen. No, when they finally do release the Apple goggles, or whatever they end up calling it, or the iSights, the EYE sight, as I've coined it, they need to make that an absolute spectacle. Like it needs to be brought on stage on the face of Jean-Claude Van Damme doing those stretches.
Space between two trucks.
Space between two trucks driving down the road. Like that's what it needs to be. Like it needs to be some kind of epic event that people won't forget.
Which they can record and showcase at this event. I mean, in the thinking that they have to get this in the hands of developers, to like get them thinking about it, so that there's something when a thing launches.
I mean, that's not a bad point, and that's one of the reasons why I thought they were going to debut it at WWDC. But now that they're doing it virtually, I'm like, dude, are they gonna announce a product of that magnitude and a completely new paradigm in computing? And they're going to announce it via a pre-recorded event. Maybe they would. Maybe they will.
No glitches.
No glitches. That's true.
And they are inviting some people to do some things.
Well,
maybe they'll strap those on the, I mean, that's another part of this that we've been missing, right? Is hands-on after these events. Like they take some people down and let them play with the brand new thing, right? They're
going to strap it on the students' heads. They're going to have students all sitting there like at that, Zuckerberg famous picture with all these things on. They're going to be watching the keynote inside the VR.
They will not let that happen. That was the most hideous-looking picture. Welcome to the hive.
Yeah. Although it was iconic. I mean, we all know exactly what picture you're talking about, right? It's like where everyone is just frozen and they're practically drooling because their brains are being reprogrammed with these headsets on, and then Zuckerberg is off there in the corner, like, looking so proud of himself. I just don't think they're going to announce the headset.
I think you're right. I went to the Apple Watch launch event. That was a big deal. Everyone was there. All these celebrities, all the Apple execs. It was U2 was on stage. Remember that thing where they touched fingers?
Oh yeah.
At the end, I think that's probably a good point. They probably would make a big deal out of it. But I don't know. They probably could make a big deal out of it at WWDC. But I think you're right. I think it's probably going to come in the fall, maybe, if they do it. And there hasn't been any manufacturing rumors, really, have there? So
yeah,
you know what I mean.
No leaks out the supply chain for it. It's like, again, new computing paradigm. They're going to have to invite people from every walk of life, every publication to try it on, and then dispense all the notes that they give everyone, right? So all the YouTubers can pretend like they're reviewing it, but they're literally just reading off a list of things that were said at the keynote event.
Ooh, bitter.
No, remember what I said? I said I would literally do that. If TC would just send me early access, I will. He doesn't even have to type it out. He can just write on a napkin, and I will literally be like, this is the best headset that has been made, and I'll be reading it like that. Like I won't even pretend like I'm not.
Bitterness confirmed.
Okay, so there's your hardware expectations, and maybe there'll be a surprise in there, but I think that's what we're getting. We will probably see Mac Pro, almost certainly. It sounds like we're getting a new Pro XDR display Mini 5K with the features that you want, but that display will probably be, again, I'm gonna guess $3,000, maybe even like $3,500. If the Pro XDR display is $5,000 and they're shrinking it down with the same technology, it's probably gonna be at least $3,000. And then probably not the EYE Sight Apple goggles. So there you go. All right, can we move on? Actually, before we do though, let me give a quick thank you to Squarespace for supporting this episode. Squarespace, they're doing another sale, and if you have not yet gotten yourself a website and you've been slacking, this is the time to do it. They have a 20% off code that you can use at checkout. If you go to squarespace.com/cultcast, you'll see it. They've got it highlighted at the top of the page. This is only going to April 8th, so you got to act fast. And it's APR. Let me see. It just disappeared. Where is it? APR 20WB will get you 20% off your first-time purchase. So go to squarespace.com, sign up for the trial, build a website, see how you like it. You know, I use a Squarespace site. In fact, I use several. And I use them because they're so easy to build and they're so easy to maintain. I mean, they just practically maintain themselves. You don't even have to do anything. And you can build any kind of website you can possibly imagine. You can sell products and services of all kinds. You can build a blog. You can build a website that highlights your business. You can have people book your time. You can have like a calendar where people can book your time so that you can like teach them your skill set or whatever. You can build an online community and have subscriptions for those people to be part of your community. I mean, it just does it all. And you can build it all yourself and maintain it all yourself, which is what I love about it. And if you have been slacking, but you're ready to give it a try, head on over to squarespace.com/cultcast, squarespace.com/cultcast, and build a website. And when you are ready to make your purchase, use code APR20WB, APR20WB at checkout, and you'll save 20% off your first purchase, which is 10% more than you would have gotten with code CultCast at checkout. But this is only for a limited time, so I think it expires, April 8th. So act fast, squarespace.com/cultcast. Let's talk about M1 Ultra. Man, I have to admit, like, I'm not trying to bash the M1 Ultra because it is a really interesting, it's a really interesting feature that you can add to your Mac Studio, right? And the question I think everyone's asking is the extra cost worth the performance that you're going to get? It's an extra $1,000 for the
$2,000.
$2,000, right, for the upgrade from the M1 Max to the M1 Ultra, and you get some other stuff along with that additional cost. You get more memory, which you probably, well, you may or may not want. I didn't want it, but you're forced to get it, 64 gigabytes of RAM instead of 32. And then you also get more SSD storage. I think it's 1 terabyte versus 512. So you do get some extra features thrown in there, but you're paying for the extra M1 Max chip in there, right? And then if you want the 32 core, aka the 64 core M1 Maxes, then you got to pay another extra $1,000. And it's just, the question is to me, is it worth spending the money on the M1 Ultra in your Mac Studio? And if you do spend the money, what kind of performance gains are you going to get? I have the M1 Ultra Mac Studio sitting back here. I have also got the Apple Studio. I've just been feeling like major waves of buyer's remorse. And I've even thought about maybe returning the M1 Ultra version and getting the M1 Max version, because that really does seem to be the sweet spot. That's where you're going to get the most performance for your money, because the M1 Ultra, as we'll talk about here in a second, doesn't necessarily perform as well as we would have expected. I mean, it's double the cores and double the memory bandwidth. You would expect it to be getting close to double the performance in most benchmarks, in most real-world tests. And the truth of the matter is that it really doesn't. And just so I don't bury the lead, I think the performance increase that you get is more along the lines of 10 to 30% on average for
10 to 30
for an extra $2,000, at least at this point. Because even though Apple said that the M1 Ultra acted as one single system on a chip, right, and that applications wouldn't have to optimize for it, it seems like that's actually not necessarily true, and that in order to gain the benefits of the M1 Ultra, that people who are making software do need to optimize for it. Otherwise, you're just not really getting any serious advantages from it. Although there are some applications that do seem to be optimized for it, and they have huge leaps in performance
there you go.
over the M1 Max. So there is hope.
What are you moaning about?
Things could change. But let's just go through this. And shout out to Zone of Tech for putting out a great video this week that goes through a lot of these benchmarks that I'm about to talk about with you. He has his own suite of performance tests that he runs, and he times how fast the M1 Max MacBook Pro was able to get through them, and then how fast the Mac Studio was able to get through them with the M1 Ultra. And so we'll talk about that, and then we'll also talk about some individual benchmark scores here. I'm going to do really high levels so that your eyes don't gloss over and you don't pass out and then soil your pants. And then I'll kind of give you the conclusions here in just a minute. But let's kind of dive into some of these benchmarks. So he tests everything in this little suite of tests that he does. He does Geekbench, Cinebench, GFX Bench, Geekbench Compute, a disk speed test, Lightroom, Photoshop, Final Cut Pro, using a 4K, 6K, and 8K timelines. It's like super thorough. And then Blender, Xcode, and maybe a couple other things here. So GFX Bench was one of the first tests where the MacBook Pro or the Mac Studio was actually able to pull ahead a little bit. And then in the Geekbench Compute test that he did, it pulled ahead a little bit more. But for some of the tests, like several of them, the M1 Ultra Mac Studio and the MacBook Pro with M1 Max were virtually neck and neck. Like there seemed to be no discernible difference in performance, which was strange, right? Like, why is that happening? We can talk about that here in a second. Let's see. The M1 Ultra was about 10% faster in the disk speed test. That could be simply because the SSD is a bigger SSD, and the larger SSDs tend to be faster. The Ultra, though, was significantly faster in Lightroom and in Blender. And these were the two tests where it seemed like the applications were actually optimized to take advantage of as many cores as could be provided. And in those tests, the M1 Ultra screamed and actually completed the tests, almost twice as fast as the M1 Max. So there is a little bit of hope here, right? So if we get some updates to some of these apps, then we might see some significant performance. The M1 Ultra Mac Studio finished the suite of tests that he had in 1 hour and 50 minutes, and then the M1 Max finished the suite of tests. This is the M1 Max MacBook Pro in 2 hours and 16 minutes. So the M1 Ultra Mac Studio completed the tests only 26 minutes faster than the M1 Max MacBook Pro. Is that worth $2,000 to you? Maybe it is, but it's not that huge of a difference.
26 minutes.
Yeah, it's 26 minutes. It's not nothing, but it's definitely not as.
That's nearly half an hour.
Yeah, that's true. And if you had kept the test going for like a full day, 24 hours. If you're running for 24 hours, then it's going to be, what is that? 2 hours and 40 minutes? So maybe longer. No, it's going to be about 2 hours and 40 minutes. No, maybe longer. I don't know. I can't do math on the fly. I should never even try. I regret that decision. But so if you're doing really long. If you're computing for a long time, then clearly the advantages of the M1 Ultra are going to compound and save you a lot of time. But I think for a lot of people, they're creators, they're making YouTube videos and whatnot, and so the savings are going to be minimal. But the other thing I wanted to mention was like even Apple's own apps, like Final Cut Pro and Logic, don't seem like they're optimized to take advantage of the extra cores. Now, I find that truly bizarre. And we know that Apple is working on a new version of Final Cut Pro because they talked about it, or they mentioned it in their keynote when they announced the Mac Studio, and they were talking about performance. There's a version of Final Cut Pro, version number 10.6.2, which is not out yet. And that seems to be the one that is optimized for the extra cores of the M1 Ultra. Well, where is it? I mean, how long has it been? The M1 Ultra Mac Studio has been out for what, like 2 weeks now? Like, where the heck is this new version of Final Cut Pro? I just find that to be truly strange, especially since Logic is also another application that seems like it's not optimized to take advantage of multiple cores, and that's not updated either. And so it pretty much performs the same for renders or for balancing tracks as the MacBook Pro because they don't really use that many cores, or it doesn't use that many cores, and so there is no performance increase because the single core performance test for the Mac Studio with the M1 Ultra is pretty much the same as the M1 Max MacBook Pro. All right,
they're just waiting for you to open that box, man.
Yeah, I hope so.
Open the box. Do it for the people.
That's what I've been waiting for. I'm like keeping it in the box. I'm like, do I actually want to keep? I'm probably going to keep it. I probably am going to keep it. But when I see these benchmarks not being as impressive as I had hoped they would be, or the real world performance tests, I wonder if I made the right purchase decision. I really do. I'm like, I could have saved myself $2,000 and gone with the M1 Max. Well, that would have paid for the Apple Studio display, right? And if I'm only going to gain 25-30% on average, performance increase with an M1 Ultra, like that's pretty meager for the extra price. So I'm hoping that Apple updates Logic and Final Cut Pro so that there are substantial performance increases there, but they may not. I expect them to do it with Final Cut Pro, but I would kind of be surprised if they did it with Logic. And so at this very point, unless you're working in Lightroom or Blender, then you are not going to see the close to double the performance increases that you would expect with the M1 Ultra Mac Studio. If you're working in Blender and Lightroom, you may actually realize those gains, right? And you'll be super happy. But if you're working in Photoshop, it's not optimized to take advantage of all the cores in the M1 Ultra. If you're working in Final Cut, it's not optimized to take advantage of all of the cores in the M1 Ultra. And then there's a lot of benchmarks that also aren't optimized to take advantage of all the cores. So
not yet.
Well, I hope that you're right. Just to kind of give you an example of what's possible here. So in the Blender test, all the M1 Ultra cores in the Mac Studio were being maxed out. So that was like one of the first tests where that actually happened. And this was also one of the first tests where the M1 Ultra CPU was drawing the amount of power that Apple said it could draw when they were announcing the Mac Studio. Oftentimes, the M1 Ultra doesn't draw as much power as it's capable of drawing, which just shows that it's not being fully utilized. And in the Blender test, the M1 Ultra was drawing 60 watts of power in Zone of Text tests. And that's what it's advertised to be able to draw. And it finished the test in 5 minutes and 8 seconds, whereas the MacBook Pro with M1 Max took more than double that amount of time. It took 11 minutes and 34 seconds. So you can see if an application is optimized for the M1 Ultra, you really do get close to double the performance increase, maybe even more. I mean, in the Blender test, like the increase in performance was more than double. So it is possible, but the question is, are we going to get the application updates that we need in order for the M1 Ultra to actually give you the performance that you expect to receive when you spend an extra $2,000? Is Leander even still awake? Let me check the camera angle there. Oh, he's still there.
Well, I mean, after all that, my takeaway is that the stuff that's been optimized for that chip performs as advertised. It's twice as fast. And the stuff that hasn't been optimized is a bit of a disappointment. But, you know, I hear what you're saying. You don't know if they're going to be if these apps are going to perform, you know, as promised, right? They haven't been optimized yet, but you know, it looks kind of hopeful. It looks like it looks like, you know, the Ultra's delivering on what Apple says from what you were just saying.
Yeah, I agree with you. Like, it looks like it's certainly capable of giving you the performance that they advertise, but in real world, everyday situations, should have waited
until Christmas, you know, to buy that machine when all the software's been come out, you know.
That's actually not a bad piece of advice. Like, if you can wait, if you really want the Mac Studio with M1 Ultra, but you don't need it right now, you want it, I would actually wait and see what happens with all this, because wait and see if the application that you use the most often gets any news that it's been updated to take advantage of all the cores and all the GPU cores. And I find it extremely odd that Apple hasn't even updated Final Cut Pro. Their own applications aren't performing as well as you would think.
It is weird because, like, you know, Lightroom, Adobe's managed to update it, and Blender, but I don't know how they compare in complexity to Apple's apps. You know, I imagine that these are, you know, Final Cut Pro is a big, hairy app, right? That is gonna must take a lot of work to get that thing to work, to update it, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, that's probably true, but again, I think it's strange because Apple knows its own roadmap,
Yeah,
right?
right,
And you would
exactly.
think that they'd say, hey, we've got this new machine for creatives coming out, and we got to make sure that our pro apps are ready for the release. We got to make sure that Logic's ready. We got to make sure that Final Cut Pro is ready. I mean, especially Final Cut Pro. Logic, okay. I can that app probably isn't as resource intensive as Final Cut Pro is because you're not editing like 8K timelines. You're editing audio, which excuse me, tends to be not as hard on a system as 8K, Canon Raw Light or something. So, but the fact that we still don't have Final Cut Pro, I just find that to be very strange. And the Adobe apps, I get that Adobe is not Apple. They probably just found out about the M1 Ultra. Maybe it takes them a while to optimize their apps, but Apple not having Final Cut Pro out, that's strange. So there you go. If you're working in Blender, if you're working in Lightroom, you're probably going to see some major improvements to performance with an M1 Ultra. For everyone else, you're looking at like between 10 and 30, like 30%-ish performance increase. And that includes Final Cut Pro, that includes Logic. And it includes scenarios where the applications can utilize multiple cores and aren't just utilizing a single core cluster or something. Like some applications do, like Photoshop, right? So in Photoshop, you're probably not going to see any benefit with an M1 Ultra over the M1 Max, at least not right now. If you have an M1 Ultra, I have hope. I mean, I have one too. I have hope that that's going to change, but we have to wait and see what happens. All right.
Open the box.
I'm going to open the box. I was going to do it this weekend, but you know what, Lewis? I'm going to be gone this weekend.
Take it with you.
I got to
Sounds
open
like
this
fun.
dang thing.
It's a portable computer, right?
It is portable, but the monitor's not. But I will truly be heartbroken, Leander. Like if they do release a 27-inch Pro XDR display at WWDC and it has mini LED and ProMotion and it's 27 inches, I'm going to be truly heartbroken by that because that's the one that I probably.
I'll buy a studio display off you, and you can use that money towards the.
There you go.
Half
Well, that's the
price,
thing
of
too.
course.
It's probably going to be so expensive. Even if it does come out, I don't know if I would buy it because do you really want to spend $3,000 on a display? It's like, and
You'll
forget
find
the stand.
ways to nitpick it too and hate it, and then regret your decision.
No, come
Never
on.
be
You know
happy.
what? I feel like I am wholly fair in my evaluations of what Apple does. Like I sometimes get a little heat for not just towing the line and talking about how great everything is and focusing on the positives because I think I do that when I feel like it's justified. But what I can't do is justify something that isn't delivering the value that we expect from Apple. And I do think that we should be honest about that and not just, be fanboys. Because it's easy to
That's
fanboy
true.
out.
That's I mean that's totally true. That is exactly true. True. But I think it's early days yet, and maybe you should suspend judgment for a little while to see whether it is actually it's a disappointment or not.
I mean, let's just be honest. It's a complete failure. Apple's doomed, and I think that the Mac Studio and the I can't even say it. The Apple Studio Display are completely broken and helpless. So there you go. Let's see here. Let's talk about foldable iPhones, Lewis. Because you know what? I would love to get my hands on a foldable iPhone, and it looks like we got a little bit of smoke with this story. Like
You know what it means when you see smoke? It means
Leander's
Leander's
in
nearby. Yeah.
there. Leander's in there getting hungry. So we've got a potential partnership here that could deliver us a foldable iPhone, which I'm not interested in foldable phones, really. But if Apple makes one, I know it will be the quality that we've come to expect, and it actually might be something I want.
Yeah, so Apple's supposedly teaming up with LG to build foldable iPad and MacBook devices. iPad.
No
and MacBook.
iPhones.
Well, hold on a minute here. Yeah, there were a couple of stories that came out this week on this. Apple's reportedly collaborating with LG, foldable iPad and MacBook with flexible OLED displays and ultra-thin cover glass. LG is already gearing up to supply similar displays to HP for a foldable laptop scheduled later this year. But interestingly, this story mentions there are 10,000 units of that panel. That's all they're planning on making. Seems like such a tiny amount. It's
Probably suspect.
So let's see. LG's built similar folding screens. In 2020, it supplied displays for Lenovo's ThinkPad X1 Fold, the world's first folding laptop
Oh, that was
tablet.
a hot one. That was a hot one. Everyone wanted the X1 Fold, Lewis.
Yeah, sounds really promising. They're also said to be producing foldable OLED panels for an upcoming HP notebook. Those panels, which have a 4K resolution, will measure 17 inches when open and just 11 inches when closed. This is according to a report from The Elec, which is a strange name for a publication. The Elec.
It feels like the last part of the word got cut off. Like you need to go and discipline one of the Cult of Mac writers.
Absolutely not. So at the end of the piece in the Elec, so this piece was all about this HP thing, right? But at the very end, it's like, meanwhile, the company, that's LG Display, is also collaborating with Apple to develop another foldable OLED panel. Panel is being designed for tablets and notebooks with ultra-thin glass as the cover window instead of polyimide. Wouldn't that be polyamide? Anyway.
Is that a spelling error?
I don't know.
I see your face contorting.
I'm not up on my
fury.
polys. But anyway, so that's the first part of it. Then also another report, Apple is supposedly, quote, actively testing a 9-inch foldable, but don't get your hopes up about seeing that this year. This is coming from Old Reliable, Ming-Chi Kuo, analyst at TF International Securities. He says that Apple's priority order for foldables is said to be medium, large, and then small devices. He noted that Apple's current prototype, this one's being tested, they're using it to test out new technologies, may not be indicative of an upcoming product. And he warns that despite his earlier prediction that a foldable iPhone could come in 2024, is now looking highly unlikely that we'll see it before 2025. So there you go. Folding everything. Well, every time I hear folding MacBook, I think, well, don't they already fold? But
right.
Wait a second. Good point. Yeah.
I don't quite understand what the benefit is, but then I haven't looked at that other one that they talked about.
A larger contiguous screen. I mean, you have a screen that is actually very large, but folds down into a much smaller form factor. You've probably seen like those folding LED displays that they have. They always show them at CES.
Right, but
yeah.
Oh, but on a laptop, I mean, what do you end up with? Like the whole device is the width of a keyboard or something, and then
I'm looking
the screen
at this.
double.
I'm looking at this Lenovo one. It's a fat, chunky boy. I mean, they say it's a thin screen. The screen may be thin, but the chassis behind it is really thick.
Huh.
I mean, this is not like a MacBook Air, or some super thin computer that folds down, into a nice thin sandwich. If you look on the Lenovo site, the thing's like, it looks like an old PowerBook from the mid 2000s or late 90s. Instead of having a keyboard, it has a screen instead, a continuous screen.
Okay, I'm looking at it right now.
Well,
and it looks like they use an external keyboard. So like if you imagine if it's a like you said a full the screen folds, then you would type on the bottom half of the screen, right? Instead of having a keyboard there, it would be the screen itself. But it looks like it uses an external keyboard, and you prop it up. So it looks like, and I was also wondering, what's the difference between like a folding computer and a folding iPad?
The operating system it runs.
Yeah.
Yeah, and maybe the size too, right? So like the iPad would fold down to a slightly smaller package, and the MacBook, the computer, would fold down to a larger one. But this doesn't look like a very portable device at all. It looks like pretty fat and chunky.
That looks pretty portable to me. I mean, it looks like a thicker notebook. Yeah, I mean, it's not as thin as you would expect it to be, but
Apple's never going to do something like this unless they can get it thin.
Yeah, exactly. That's what makes me excited about it. Is I feel like everyone else has done it wrong, and if Apple decides to do it, it's going to be because it's going to be sleek, it's going to be slim, and it's going to be something that you'd actually want to use, and it will also be not as huge and chunky as this one that we're looking at, the ThinkPad X1 Fold. This is actually a really interesting computer idea, right? Like to have a screen at the top of the fold and at the bottom. I mean, it's kind of interesting.
Yeah,
it's very minority report. Like you can move things around with your hands, right?
Well, my neighbor's got one of the Samsung Folds, that the phones.
Yeah.
That when it folds at it, and it's about the size of like maybe an iPad Mini.
Mm-hmm.
The screen, and it's totally usable, and it's a nice looking screen. But when it folds up, it's pretty chunky. But then again, you can fold it up and put it into a pocket. So and it's twice the thickness of an iPhone at least. But when you fold it out, it's got a screen that's twice the size, and it's got a little bit of a fold in the middle, that you can see. And you can definitely feel it with your finger. But it's a nice looking screen. It's and nice hardware. But I don't know, it's not quite there yet. If they can make it thin, it would be fantastic.
Yeah, that's definitely going to be the key. I think the part about these two stories that kind of work together here is that Apple is actively testing a 9-inch foldable, but then they have this partnership with LG, who I think who has been the only company that's actually perfected. I don't want to say perfected, but created like an actual folding OLED
usable
that you
product,
can, a usable product, right? That you can
Yeah.
actually put in devices. And the fact that Apple's teaming up with them, if this story is accurate, that's the exciting part. It's like, okay, they're not necessarily just tinkering with the idea. If they have a partnership with LG, they are seriously considering building an iPhone that folds, and I think that could be a really compelling device as long as they can make it thin. And then I know Apple would also have the display be glass instead of like plastic, because didn't that Samsung foldable phone, I think the display was plastic, which is such garbage.
Yeah,
Like no one wants a
plastic.
plastic display. They scratch so easily. They don't look nearly as vibrant as a display with a glass screen. I mean, you can just tell that by looking at the LG Ultrafine and then looking at the although I don't know if the LG Ultrafine has a glass cover on the screen. I think it's plastic. I'm not sure about that. But the studio display has a glass cover on the screen, and it just looks so much more vibrant. It really makes a big difference. So if you're excited about a folding phone, Apple's working on something. We don't know if it will ever see the light of day, but clearly they got something going on. If they get a partnership with LG, it's more than just them tinkering with it, trying to figure out if they're going to do something. Like they're clearly working on something. Whether or not that something will be released, that's the question. All right, last story of the day.
I thought we had another one. What happened?
We blasted through both of them.
Wow.
Oh, yeah, I got rid of. There was a story. We don't have to talk about this very long, but there was a story this week about Apple's Thunderbolt 4 cable. That was the one I removed because I'm like, we're running out of time. But because we always get blasted from the Windows dudes about how overpriced everything Apple is, and we always justify Apple. We're like, it's not that bad once you take into account like the components that are being used and the quality. It's like it's actually not that expensive. You're just getting a higher quality product, and so you have to pay for it. And then you look at Apple's. Where is this? I'll bring it up because it's hard to make that argument when Apple is busy selling Lightning 4 cables or Thunderbolt 4 cables. Thunderbolt 4 cables. Here we go.
Bring it up just for the headline.
Okay, here it is. Well, I don't have the Cult of Mac story still. Do you?
What?
Yeah, I
Oh my
accidentally deleted it.
heavens!
If you can find it.
Betsy. Geez,
But
okay, one moment.
I'll spoil it here. Apple is selling 2 Thunderbolt 4 cables. One is 3 meters. One is 1.8 meters. What? This is America. Can we just say these are in feet? What is wrong with these people? The 3-meter one is $160. $160. And the 1.8 meter one, which is what, 2 feet? No, wait, 1.8. That's 6 feet. That is $130 for a cable for a friggin'
129.
129. Sorry. I mean,
here's the link.
I mean, where's the owner of Monster? He's getting envious here, right?
It's Lee. Noel Lee, yeah.
No, he's got his
took my
spinners on his
business model.
Segway. He's like, why didn't I think of this? He's like, these guys stole my thunder. You got TC. They're the new monster of cable.
Thunder, yeah. Isn't this thing bristling with chips though?
I mean,
This cable.
Yes, but in the story, did you find the story, Lewis?
Yeah, it's in Slack there.
Okay, so let me bring up this story. I mean, yes, it does have tons of technology in it, but as we'll see from this story, there's other Thunderbolt there's other Thunderbolt cables out there that you can buy. This one's from we don't have a picture of it. There's one from OWC, and it is the 2-meter one is $57, and Apple's selling that same cable for $129. So it's like, dude,
Slightly more expensive.
Yeah, I got a cable.
You got to read the
for
headline.
y'all. The headline is Apple just can't resist BS like it's $129 Thunderbolt cable. You know, honestly, Lewis, when I saw this story, I actually didn't believe. I thought this was a joke. I actually didn't believe it. I was like, "There's no way this is true." I thought that someone was just trolling, and then I had to go to Apple's website, and sure enough, I was like, "There it is. They're selling a friggin' Thunderbolt 4 cable for $129." I mean, That's quintessential Apple right there.
I bet it looks really nice.
I bet it looks
like
just
nice,
like every other
got that
Thunderbolt
nice
cable that's out
braided
there.
thing. Nice
Well, let's take a look.
cable.
I don't even think it has a braided cable. Let's
Yeah,
look.
it does. Yeah, it does. Nice braided, fat. It's a
Okay.
fat-looking braided cable. I'm sure
It's
it's
thick.
a lovely. And you know what? That is a nice feature. I bought a Ugreen USB-C cable the other day.
Yep.
It's got that nice thick braided. But you know what? I think it cost. I mean, you know, it's USB-C. It's not Thunderbolt, but it's like $14.
Yeah.
Works just fine.
It must be some nice braiding to add another $60 to the price.
I'm sure it's a very, very excellent. It probably feels great in your hand. You feel like a world-beating champion with that $129
Absolutely.
cable.
And the data just flows completely unimpeded through that cable. It's
Unfettered flowing of data.
They use oxygen-free copper from the monster mines. They sublease the mines from Noah Lee, and they're just mining that copper from the same mine that Monster uses for their HDMI cables. So, because let me tell you, there's one thing that you don't want in your copper, and that's oxygen. You know, if that's one thing I've learned from the Monster packaging, that makes a big difference.
Oh, really? Is that true?
No, but it shows how good the marketing works, right? It's like yeah, that's why my cable's in a extra $45 because there's that took all the do you know how hard it is to get oxygen out of things, Lewis? Like oxygen is everywhere. You got to go through a special process to remove it. You got to squeeze it extra hard so that all the oxygen comes out of the copper. So we've hired a team of people. They all squeeze every wire individually and make sure they get all the
Hand
oxygen
squeezed.
off. That kind of process doesn't come cheap. Yeah, the copper's hand squeezed. Dude, we are literally building a new cable company here. We have hand squeezed copper wires that goes through a proprietary hand squeezing process that has been passed down through generations of cable makers, and we guarantee that that process is just as good as it gets. You know, it just squeezes out all the oxygen. All right, this show's deteriorating quickly. Should we wrap up with this one story here, Lewis? We said we weren't going to talk about this very long, and then we did, which is what always happens.
Yeah.
But we've got a pretty novel use here of Find My.
Yeah, it's my favorite. I can't stop reading Ukraine war stories, and this is one of my favorite ones this week. Ukrainians use Find My to track Russian troops who stole devices. So, the whole point of this is like next time you invade a country, tell your troops not to steal, MacBooks and iPhones and AirPods from civilians.
Or if you're smart, you leave them out and let the invading force take them, and then you track them.
Well, there's been a lot of ingenuity on the side of Ukrainians, apparently. Anyway, so they're using Apple's Find My network to watch the progress of their stolen hardware in the hands of Russian troops who took it in real time. This comes from Cultamac's story. Ukrainians have turned to Apple's Find My device tracking technology to follow Russian troop movements. After Russian soldiers stole Apple gear during the invasion, the device's Ukrainian owners can see and report on where the troops toting the gadgets are going in real time, including a recent retreat into Belarus. And this is based on a tweet from a guy whose name I cannot pronounce, Franak Vlakorka, senior advisor to somebody else's name I can't. Oh, wow.
That's like a name's even more complicated. Yeah.
Anyway, he said on there, Ukrainians are locating their devices on the territory of the Homiel region in Belarus, where part of the Russian army retreated. I just thought this was fascinating. There's been a lot of ways that sort of real new technology has been used in this war. From Google Maps providing insight into Russia's troop movements. Getting basically, they are moving in. People figured that out from Google Maps. Ukrainians using Telegram to disseminate information and target Russian troops. It's just a whole new kind of war.
It's pretty fascinating, isn't it? It's a totally modern story. Totally modern story.
You know what Apple should do is send the troops a big old pallet full of Apple tags, and then just
tags.
Air tags.
Just launch them onto drop them by drone onto the tanks.
just leave them out in your apartments, and when the Russian forces are like, oh, what is this, and they take it and along with your MacBook and all your other stuff, and then you can track individual troop movements all across the globe because they'll be trying to take your technology and they don't realize that it's all being tracked. Now that's an idea right there.
Yeah, some of the commenters on the thing were like, "Oh yeah, all we need now is drones that can target an AirTag."
Just wait. Wait till Apple's next keynote. TC comes out
Oh
on
my
stage
heavens!
and starts introducing troop technology. I was gonna say something else that was gonna be just wildly entertaining, but it escapes me. Oh man, yeah, it's gone. It's gone from my memory banks.
Too bad. I'm sure
Oh,
it's
it's back. It's back. Okay, well, I just one last point about this. To your point about this being like such a futuristic story, a sign of the times, right? It's not only stuff that, or not even Apple stuff, that is affecting the outcome of the war. It's like you have people like troops who are talking about what's going on Instagram, on different social media platforms, which reveals their coordinates to the Russians and vice versa. And so you have these different militaries using social media and these different technologies to figure out where the other side's troops movements are, because they're using all of these apps to broadcast what's going on in the different scenarios that they're in, where they are, the different battles and stuff. It's just totally bizarre because these people are using social media and they're using technology, consumer technology, to figure out where the other side is and where they're moving to and stuff, which is definitely new. I don't think we've ever had any kind of war situation in the past where the different sides were using social media and like Twitter and Instagram and TikTok to like figure out where the other side is. It's very weird, isn't it?
And just over the counter drones, like literally just send out a drone to go find a Russian tank. I mean,
there was a call, wasn't there, for people to donate their drones to the
There was. I didn't hear about that. Okay. That's
We
crazy.
did a story about it, yeah.
So you just send out your DJI drone. I mean, yeah, if you had like a little foldable DJI drone, it'd be hard to shoot down because they're so small and so fast. And you could fly that thing, and yeah, that's crazy. I mean, consumer technology has gotten so futuristic now. It's like these troops are just using consumer-grade technology to help them
conduct a war.
Yeah, it's very strange. It's very weird. All right, guys. Well, I don't want to bum us all out. Talk about war. It's very sad. And let's go ahead, get the music going. Let's get things a little bit more upbeat. Let's go ahead and wrap it up there. That's all the CultCast we have for you guys this week. Someone's asking if I'm going to be doing a Mac Studio unboxing. I probably should. Probably should resuscitate my channel. Yeah, what?
You'd have to actually open the box.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, give yourself a little bit of motivation.
How about I just send you a picture of the box and we'll call it good there. Yeah, I got to do something. I got to unbox. That's going to happen. That's going to happen very time soon. Whether or not I film it, that's another thing. All right, we're going to go ahead and wrap up the other CultCast we have for you guys this week. If you want to come say hi, we're all on Twitter. I'm at Erfon, ERFN. Lewis is at Lewis Wallace. Leander is at L. Kane. This has been the CultCast, the best 30-plus minute Apple conversation you're going to hear all week long. New episodes of the CultCast come out every Thursday night. And with my new Mac Studio, I might render so fast, it will be out on Wednesday night.
Wednesday, yeah.
Actually, it's the same speed as the M1 Mac, so probably not. It will actually still for me Thursday. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching live. And we'll see you guys next time. All right, I can just return everything and just get the 14-inch MacBook Pro. That's probably what I just should have done.
Like one of those folders.
I'm gonna get a Dell. How about that? We'll return it all. I'm so indecisive. I'm just gonna return it all. I'm gonna get a Dell laptop, a nice Dell laptop, a nice thick one, 3 inches thick. I can't. I demand the best. The CultCast demands the best. Even if I can only edit the CultCast 10 seconds faster, I think that's worth the $5,000. Don't you think?
Absolutely. I mean, over a year, that you're going to save yourself like 6 or 8 minutes.
Save 8 minutes this year. Bye, y'all. Cal, seriously, I have